Hello, everyone. I am so excited to get into this and show you this deck. Um, I have been looking at this deck for a while, and you're looking at the title, so you obviously know what it is. Probably mentioned my name is Alexander Speaks. This right here, what I wanted to show you is like what you would get when you order it. This is amazing, in my opinion. I'm gonna open this up just to show something. When you buy it, at least for me, I got like an order sheet, and thank you so much for your continual support of my art, my friend. I hope you love the Oracle. This is not my first deck from Tiera. So I have actually the Ritual Tarot by Tiera, and I love Tiera's work so much. I think I have a lot of reasons for buying this deck. I want to get into it, but just to show how much I love their artwork, this is the first edition of the Ritual Tarot, where not only was there no titles on the front, there's none on the back, and you had this old stapling in the center of a good chunk of pages. Tiera, for me, in my own personal opinion, I think it's important to financially support creators, support artists, especially now of all times. It's really necessary that you don't just say that you care about people, but you actually show it with your actions and you have meaning behind it. I'm thinking about this back section of the Ritual Tarot. She ends it, and this is what I remembered: she does not suffer fools gladly. There was a point in time where, and I feel like it's just appropriate to talk about this, where Tiera was being attacked online, right? And she, from my point of view, she was attacked as a woman for having boundaries. This is really important to bring up because the deck that we're going through is a dark feminine, from what it was explained, a dark feminine oracle deck. And obviously, the ocean of experiences for womanhood is wide and vast. And I, as someone who's AMAB, will not be able to accurately describe and phrase it in a way that, would be as like a lived experience. But when we say we need to support creators and support artists and do it, part of it was me thinking back about Tiera and how she was basically attacked by another woman online for having boundaries, and how important it is for us as creative people, as witches, as whoever, to have boundaries and say like, no, this is my boundary, this is what I'm sticking to it. And also just like saying, you know what, you don't have to agree with me, but you don't have to have access to me. And that's something I really enjoy. Getting into the package, because with an unboxing you have to take your time for no good reason. It says, "Dear Cave Dweller, this oracle, like all the Sybilline oracles, is inherently female, a work born from the Chthonic womb. She is the same dark mother who brought each of us into this world and lovingly dispatched us to the underworld when our time here is up. She is the blood tide of the black moon and the sabbatical dance of the burial mound. To commune with the sacred dark means beginning at the source, and the source is woman. She is the earth. Seek her in the earth. The Cave of Sybil is an occult divination deck insofar as the answers to the riddles in the dark are left hidden. May you meet your own darkness and make it shine. My deepest thanks to you for supporting me in this magical and heretical endeavor. In gratitude, Tiera." I do want to say, for me personally, I will say that as like a dark feminine deck, obviously, I do expect people to describe it with terms like woman and female. I have seen in the past Tiera speak and post online with phrasings of, or is it? Like something being inherently feminine. And I will say, As someone who like does study this, I do think that it can come off in that gray line, that borderline between like feminist and caring about other women, and feminist but not really because you're secretly a TERF. And from what I've seen, Tiera does support trans people, and that's something I really do care about as well. So if you're like me and you want like multiple different types of divination tools and support multiple types of witches, and you see something like this and you're like, your warning bells go off, like, is this a TERF? I haven't seen anything that verifies it. It does seem that Tiera is just a woman who has boundaries, who creates amazing art, and I think we should celebrate that. So getting into it, I already opened this up a little bit just to make sure there wasn't any personal information, but this will be basically what you'll get. She gave me this little business card. I already have one of these, and what I do personally is I have a giant, this is one part of it, like part 1 of 5, of just ephemera that people give me. And since I already have one and I know how to reach her if I need to for like buying more decks, not that, you know, not that I'm DMing her and like, let's collab, sis. I'm just gonna put it in here. But it comes wrapped in this beautiful black tissue paper that is, unfortunately, but it is what it is, wrapped in this black plastic. So even the experience of opening the deck, it's like you're going through layer after layer after layer of darkness, which, as for someone who, pretty sure, yeah, who went from Haxan Press to Hedge Rider Press, and the connotations of being a Hedge Rider and what that means in witchcraft, it definitely is on brand and it makes sense. And I enjoy it from the storytelling point of view of like getting a deck, as well as just having it in my hands. I think a lot of times, minus it being plastic, of course, I think a lot of times people kind of create it like, oh, this is a deck, it's done, get it out, move over. But I love it when, and I do believe this to be true for this deck, when you have an artist who is not only skilled in the ability of like making the art and having their own understandings with themselves, which that deep level of introspection, I need to be opening this, that deep level of introspection can be often quite rare to see online. But just to continue that forward with not only having that deep understanding of who you are, but being able to tell it as a story, that's something I really appreciate and I love. I love it so much. And then the extra layer, the extra little cherry on top, is not only having that story and being able to tell it, but seeing how that story changes and continues. Not just with like the creation of the artwork in the guidebook, but the box itself, the packaging, the speaking about it online. We're going to get into it, but the guidebook of sorts that Tiera has made is more of cut collage poetry spellbook that is equally dark. And I don't know if it's coming off. I think it is. The texture of the artwork, not of the book, I mean the box itself, is dark and stone, which really fulfills this cave symbology. And now let's say alpinist. This is my first time seeing all of the artwork because I don't buy from Kickstarter anymore. That's for a personal reason, and I'm not going to drag anyone else into this. So obviously, you know, as someone who's showing you this deck, I should probably make it as hard as possible for you to see the deck. But just to continue it on, Cave of Sybil spellbook by Tiera. I love the font, you know? The font she uses in the Ritual Tarot, it seems like we're getting the point across, we're explaining it. But from first edition Ritual Tarot to now, even just the continuation of the storytelling by like the font choice. As someone who loves fonts, I really appreciate that. Also, I think, yeah, no. So the edge of the book isn't gilded, but because it's black, it's almost like as if it was gilded in like a matte black. But I think this might be one of those texts where even if you were messy with it with a black Sharpie, that would just look fab. The witch is a symbol of revolt. This oracle is an act of rebellion. Witches who wish to keep their hands clean, this oracle is not for you. I love this so much. I think that with everything Tiera May has been through, it's so important as just a continuation of that to be like, you know what, like I have boundaries and I expect of all people, other women to get it and respect it. Personally, I'm not a misogynist. I don't identify as misogynist. Not that misogynists do identify as it. But I continuously think about, okay, if she was doing what she was doing, but she was a man, would anyone have an issue with it? And a lot of times, I don't think so. I've heard of like, not to get into it, but like deck creators be like, no, I'm not going to give you a free deck. And every time it was a guy, it was no big deal. So the cave of Sybil, I'm probably not even saying this right, leads to the underworld, but to get through the Porta Infernal, Sybil demands an offering, a drop of blood, a golden bow, everything we used to be and can never be again. We now we descend into Plutonian darkness. Beneath the soil, underground, an image without beginning, without end. Now, you know I love Plutonian magic. I'm going to keep some of this for your own discovery. This deck contains 53 works of art. These images were created by hand over the course of a year in my personal journals and notebooks. An intimate inner world not originally intended for display. My descent began with a deep hurt. Aspects of myself that I had kept hidden were unearthed and captured on the page. Some elements I deliberately shrouded in black. Others I revealed. What is concealed is just as important as what is explicit. That's something I'm gonna have to keep in mind though, is like, great what's on the artwork, but also what isn't on the artwork. The intention is to honor what we cannot see. Because of their deviant concept, these images do not readily allow themselves to be defined or caged, like the subversive spirit of the witch. They reject conformity. Like all demonic entities, their power lies in the existence between and outside a fixed categorization. The meanings of the cards are fluid. What they have in common is a fusion of attraction and repulsion in which lust and disgust, sexuality and suffering are inextricably linked. I have intentionally kept the instructions for using these cards brief so as not to limit their magical potential. Images have their own language and words do not have justice to what they express. They act as a catalyst for meaning, but their divinatory interpretation is ultimately an individual matter for which there are no rules. I love that. I think the way that she specifically touches on that, hey, like, if I put an idea in your head of how this is supposed to work, it forever changes the framework of the artwork, right? And I do think hearing that, it kind of questions me if it's even morally right from an artistic point of view to share her artwork. Almost like, okay, if I'm sharing with you the different ideas I'm getting from this, does that mean that I'm inherently doing the thing that she wishes you not to do? So if that's something that you want to consider, that might be, pause the video. Each name is charged with carefully selected name, that each image, that serves as a guiding force. The handwriting characters were inscribed blind and can be found on the back of each card. So does that mean... I think that means that she blindfolded herself. And then the spells. Each image of the deck is paired with a poetic incantation. That's what I was talking about, contained with the accompanying spell book. The book of spells was created using a cut-up ritual. Words and phrases were dissected, mixed, and reassembled according to the ancient alchemical principle of solve et coagula, or dissolve and coagulate. The spells are designed to deepen your connection to each image as you integrate them into your practice. The lyrical I, through which many of the spells speak, is not that of the author, rather a magical garment for you to adorn through your journey with the deck. Acknowledgements. For my mother and my sister, you may have been there for me through the darkness of nights. Without your love and support, the cave of Sybil would not exist. My deepest thanks to the artist Gask Bosch. I'm probably not saying that right because and to all my fellow witches who have joined me in this heretical endeavor, I am eternally grateful for you. That kind of means, for me, this means that when we get to the spell sections, when sections say I, right, it's almost, from what I'm getting, like a mythical play act. And you're mythically play acting as each card. So just as like a spoiler, let's just cut to one. Here's one. So if I'm role playing as the ancestor, whether for like magical or ritual intentions, deep roots of utter blackness interlace endless coil grown out of runes. I belong to the ever-living roots who begot me. And using these words and these images, especially like mentally picturing your artwork, or even if you were like, if you are an art witch, I don't know if Tiera May says that she is an art witch, but as an art witch myself, using these images in repetition in your own artwork might be helpful too. If you're like, I want to work with ancestors, right? So I'm going to use the images of like roots of black lace. And maybe even just this section stamped again and again and again. Is there anything else I need to... At the cave, at the Sybil Cave of Fate, to touch in dreams, blind vision that sets fire to the oracle. Okay, that's it. So now that I have officially stalled long enough, let's get into the artwork. Actually, real quick. Okay, yeah. So it seems to be, because I know that says mother, and if I flip it around, the first page, the first card in the guidebook is mother. So it seems like this is the order in which they're meant to go through. This is going in the box. Because honestly, the backwards of the back of the cards for the decks that Tiera makes, they're never a miss, you know? Like this, I love it so much. And if you are like a mixed media type of art witch, this as just like a little insert to your own grimoire, love. But let's get into this. Mother. You know what I really enjoy as a small notice is this creasing detail in the paper. You know? It's either a crease or a taped or like glued edge of an image. I think, you know, obviously Tiera May does collage, but collage has obviously so many different extensions to it. And I think I personally want to believe that her not choosing to digitally edit these in the way of like melding between the two or fitting the images together was an aesthetical choice. So the way that she draws O's makes me think this is ego. Ooh. Law. Empire. I think a lot of us probably feel this way right now. I just want to apologize. I'm a Gemini, and if you're expecting like a quiet walkthrough, this may not be the video for you. Or any of my videos, to be honest. Invader. I think it's interesting. It looks almost like this man, and this arm that's like reaching out to them is almost being held, right? And then what I think this is woman, it's almost like her mouth is destroyed. And there's almost like the same treatment of fire here, here, and here. So this is not just like a dark deck, but also almost of like ignition. Becoming. I don't know if I'm seeing this correctly, but it almost looks like a cauldron here. Maybe that could be part of the attention, is like scrying into the cards itself, and sort of like an abstract play at path working. Gatekeeper. Love this. Love this, love this, love this. Like, this is what I mean. Tiera May, if it was her intention, if she really wanted to, she could have softened up all these collage edges post in the digital, and she didn't, which makes me feel like this is intentional, right? Everything is intentional, both from like, again, like what she said when she said from adding it to what she didn't add, but also just the continuation of how she tells the story in the way that she didn't soften up these edges. They're meant to be harsh. Sabbath. So envious of like, I think the way that she portrays color in these hues of orange, red, and yellow, it makes me wish that the way I handle colors is that great. Tribute. I particularly love the insect, you know? Like, it's images of my mind of like dark, creepy crawlies. And it's kind of nice to see alternative animals in decks besides like, you know, this is a woman, so that means she's obviously a doe, and this is a man, which means that it's a buck, you know? I don't even know if this is supposed to be feminine. Like the creature itself here, if it's supposed to be like a representative of like a feminine form, or because this is like a dark feminine deck, and femininity, especially today, is so inherently like the story of it is so heavily infiltrated by masculinity and people who are like, what about men? So I wouldn't even be surprised if one card is like mansplaining. Wake. Oh, beautiful. All these grunge textures, I love. I love it so much. And even like the veiling of the moon, I appreciate it. I think what I'm noticing so far is this like highly detailed artwork. Like the treatment of the wings, you know? I think that's something I want to try to keep in mind going forward. Origin. I feel like this almost perfectly captures this idea of, okay, when she's talking about the cave and you're going down to the ascent, you like stumble on this great opening, this is what you see. And this running, for lack of better words, not to be insulting, but I'm just like, I'm having trouble thinking of the right words. This running fad of interest in like the Dark Mother as a concept or an archetype, I feel like this card does it justice. It meets it at its eye. Harlot. I'm thinking about the idea of being labeled a harlot and the Scarlet Letter, and how the Scarlet Letter, for some people, right, the Scarlet Letter has so much queer subtext. And I don't know, I might want to just sit with that card. Chord. From death to birth. Not really seeing any red on this card. So I wonder if this deck has a color correspondence for red, right? What is the lack of red in this card? What would that mean? Hex? I think the forms themselves of the artwork and just this texture, part of me wants to be like, I wish I could see more, but I also understand that like the lack of seeing it is the point, you know? When you're in a cave and you're going down conceptually into darkness, you don't have all the details. And I think that, you know, the inclination to be frustrated is the purpose. Vanity. I think this is like the best example. If you're trying to get into like looking at artwork and be like, okay, well, this is the image, and then work on like, well, what's not there? For a card that's called Vanity, why does she not have a face? I think this is supposed to be tarot. See, I feel like this is what I was talking about, where in order for women to talk about their lived experiences of being women, part of it includes the obstruction, the injustice, and the violence done by them, by, yes, other women, but also by men. And this feels like a personally a masculine-esque card for a feminine deck. And just like this one, like, why is there no face? This is a feminine deck. What do we get from the lack of a woman in this card? I personally just feel like this is masculine, almost by this foot stomping down on the snake. And I guess the hands. Other. This is so beautiful. I'm always a sucker for a couple of things. I love Gorgons and Medusa. I love it. I love Medusa. I love Medusa as an archetype, an idea, an image, a story of women who get sexually assaulted. And just like there's so much meanings you can get from the mythos of it. I enjoy that. I also love Crying Eyes. And I think that this concept of like an other as an entity, just welcoming the collective bodies of multiple people, I think it's so beautiful and harrowing at the same time. Pestilence. Ooh. It's interesting. It's like the same texture of wood cut and re-glued multiple times for this bird. And almost like this grassy landscape with these mountains ahead. But a pestilence as in like an accruing dead. Vision. I feel like this is gonna be a lot of people's like, oh, this is my favorite card. And that's not to diminish it, because I also love it. But I feel like you can kind of have a good grasp of, oh, I think people are gonna like this card. Almost like the border around it too. I think, let's just look back a little bit. It seems like Tiera May and this deck is not ashamed or afraid to do artwork that isn't like everything is in the center directly facing at you. It's almost like she's playing at the corners and the edges of the artwork too, and she's allowing for like a flowing dynamic story. So for such like an abrasively in the center, in your face card, barrel. Horde. Lure. Conqueror. I think that's like one of the rare elements of blue in this deck. Like it's just a dark, not even like a dark, like a cobalt, but just like a blue. Also with a card that lacks a lot of these like fire and bright elements too. So it makes me wonder. I wonder if Tiera May is like using reds, orange, and yellows culturally as a code-in for womanness, and if these blues for Conqueror is masculine. But maybe I'm not seeing the full thing. I think this is Repenter. This face, I think, this might help. Actually, no, I'm an art witch. I should use this. So this face right here, the cracked open head of like these open ideas. It gives this idea of like, yeah, she's repenting, she's repenting, but no one said that this was a Christian repenting. No one said that this was like repenting to be a Christian or a Christian ideal again. Or maybe it is about that, and it's about like, I promise to be good and quiet and silent, and then you have all these like ragingness, like raging fights and violence and thoughts in your head. Omen. Lack of reds or blues. Trial. Now this, if I could, I know I talk about having this card as like an extra card used in mixed media. I wouldn't mind this too. I love it. Almost like this hybrid details. Also, is this minus like these very translucent-esque greens? This is like a darker green that we, or more opaque green that we haven't seen before. Also, kind of gives off heart-shaped box, Nirvana as a conversation. Communion. So yeah, I think this solidifies with the repent card, you know? This for me almost is like, you are repenting for or to the Dark Mother. And this is communion with the Dark Mother. Wound. There's that space motif too. I'm thinking motif-wise, Tiera May in this deck, at least so far, seems to be going over space. There's a lot of skin. So the lack of clothes outside of elements of like armor. Red's birth. What is that? It looks like a hand pulling a foot. I thought it was like a spine of sorts. Talisman. Scry. Saturning. Interesting. Another masculine form in this deck. And what does it mean for there to be a lack thereof, like of a woman in this card? But even then, it seems like he's kind of suffering too. It seems like a lot of the womanly cards was like fire emanating out of them. And this one, it's like he's being consumed by the fire. Fortune. Outcast. I'm not going to say it, the name of this card. I need to do more research. But if I'm correct, not to attack anyone, but if I'm correct, this is another element of like a closed indigenous practice that got stolen and then shared through virality. So I'm obviously not going to say the name of this card, and I'm not going to say like, how dare Tiera say this or do this, because who am I to speak on this? I don't even know if I'm correct on that assumption. Also, I don't even know if Tiera is indigenous. It could be true that that's close, but it also could be her culture. I would not even know. Cunning. Gather. I think this is another great example of the layers of collage bringing texture intentionally. And a lot of the times what I've seen so far is that she's created texture through this like stratito. I think that's the right word. If it's not the right word, I'm gonna put it on the screen. But this technique of like layering down paints, like she either dry brushes it or layering down paint and then taking like the back of a paintbrush and like scratching out images. Boom. Interesting. The shapes of the paper being cut out, it's almost like it's not a fire, but it's almost fire-esque, Ancestor. Wait a minute. Okay, so when you look at, we couldn't have seen it and knew this beforehand, but when you look at the artwork, the main function of the artwork is isolated. So Repenter, it is that face. Bind. Dawn. Fates. Wayne, maybe? I think that's the thing. The commitment to doing this, it means it's a commitment to telling the story, but that does not mean a commitment to clarity. And the commitment to clarity is something that I feel like is intentionally left out. And hopefully it's coming across. I am attempting to be as like respectful as possible to it. Because, just speaking from my own point of view, as a queerdo or a queer weirdo, you have to build that bridge of authenticity to yourself. But then the next layer of difficulty, as I've heard from one of my favorite shows, is building that bridge to others. And I think that she's intentionally making it so that it's unclear in this deck. So this wouldn't be like normally an applicatable thing. Faceless. Almost like this rising form. Again with space and snakes. But even then, I feel like she has built this bridge messenger to who she is as a person and who she wants to convey in this deck. It almost looks, I don't know how to say this, this looks more photograph-esque, this section right here. like a Polaroid than the rest. And obviously it's all photography, masked. Conjure. Unmade. I think Unmade is another card I really appreciate. Brew. Again, like these colder tones here. Bloodstone. Cure. The answer is, in truth, and volatility. Alchemy. So let's go and pull a card. I think obviously the story of the dark feminine and the dark womanness, it has its own history, right? And I think that politically speaking, there is a lot to get out of it right now of reasons why people would want to talk about it. That's embarrassing. Oops. Why people would want to talk about it, access it, perform it, share it, be it. It's not like all women in the US have all heard great news for the last couple of years or the next couple of years going forward. I will say, again, from my understanding, which is very limited, it does seem that Tiera May has created this tool with intention and is open and honest and saying like, hey, anyone can use this tool. I think maybe without saying it, the implication is like anyone can use this dark feminine tool. Hopefully everyone can care about the dark feminine outside of using this tool as well. And I hope that people continue that as well. I'm hoping that with this deck, at least within my own usage of it, I hope to get maybe a bit of like Sylvia Plath out of this, but without the racism and anti-Semitism that Sylvia Plath had. Let's see. Some people could say that that's what I am. For caring about misogyny and caring about being a feminist. But then again, you kind of have to think about, if I call out someone for being misogynistic, who would benefit from that? Who would benefit from me being like, hey, chill it. Invader and Empire. There's no... what's it called? Table of contents Punk Whirler or Feral Vision. Well, here's Invader. Gatekeeper becoming. We are authentic at Planet Speaks. Oh, they were literally right next to each other. How cringy is that? Not of the deck, but of me. Cut open, dead water bursts forth. The sacred curse unfolds. May the devil feast upon the dust of the empire. What a powerful idea. Is this? No. I think these. I thought for a second that these minus the words were the background artwork, and they're not. I don't know why I thought that, because like I'm pretty sure I read that Tiera made this after making this. So also she said this was from her own journal. I don't know why I thought that. But it seems to be like, if I was reading this, well, you played around, you played stupid games, and now you win stupid prizes, you know? And you did what you did to piss off as many people as possible because you didn't think they would fight, and now they're fighting. So now you get what you get. And what are you going to get? May the devil feast upon the dust of the empire. How fun. How fun. That sounds almost patronizing, but I genuinely mean like how fun. And because you just know, people are going to compare it and be like, wow, I didn't really appreciate it. I will say, if she were to offer this again, but gilded, in a matte gilding, which I know people didn't care about the first time, they're like, the gilding chips. The gilding chips. I was like, well, yeah, because you use it. I mean, I shuffle this deck, and I'll shuffle it right now. The point of you to have tools is to use them. I know people are going to compare it anyway, so I might as well just be like... I think Tiera definitely has her own techniques that she has honed in on from here to here. And I think... seems nice. I'm excited to see if Tiera is like me in the way that the world in general helps fuel her creations, and also like what's gonna come. Oh my gosh, communion with the Ace of Cups. Live, laugh, love that. Love it. I'm excited to see... I don't know how to say this. You know when like you hear about women giving birth and men are like, oh my gosh, it's so cute. What should we name the next one? And you're like, I just gave birth. You know, give me a second to breathe. I don't mean it like that. Because obviously this needs its own time to be appreciated, you know? But as an artist and a collector, it almost makes me giddy to see, oh, we got this tool which is so great, and we're getting this tool which is so great. I can only wonder with anticipation what will be the next chapter in Tiera's deck creation stories. I wonder if it's, because I know it's definitely possible. My deck collection goes from all the way dark to all the way happy. You know, I have rainbow, fantastic childhood like illustrations, and then I have, you know, murder scenes from horror movies. You know, so I kind of want to know: is it going to get darker? Is it going to get brighter? Is there going to be another theme that she wants to touch on. I love how she uses this building as a bob. Just to mention that. All right, that's it for now. Don't subscribe, don't like, don't comment, do all that. Thank you so much, and I really hope you enjoyed this video as we continue with this.